The morning alarm pierced through the silence of Station Echo 7 with its familiar electronic shriek. Marcus Chen rolled out of his narrow bunk, his withered hands automatically reaching for the coffee maker that had been his only reliable companion for the past 2 decades. The machine hummed to life, filling the cramped quarters with the rich aroma that had become his daily ritual of survival. Outside the reinforced viewport, the gas giant Kepler 442b dominated the view, its swirling amber and crimson storms creating patterns that never repeated themselves. Marcus had memorized every visible detail of that alien world over the years, watching its weather systems dance across the surface like some cosmic ballet performed for an audience of one. The communication array crackled to life, and Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. It had been silent for so long that he sometimes forgot it was even connected. The voice that emerged from the speakers was distorted by distance and interference, but unmistakably feminine. Station Echo 7, this is Deep Space Vessel Harmony. Do you copy? Marcus stared at the radio for several seconds, his coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. 20 years. 20 years of automated supply drops, routine maintenance reports sent into the void, and conversations with his own reflection. He had almost convinced himself that Earth had forgotten about this remote monitoring station on the edge of known space. Harmony, this is Echo 7, he replied, his voice hoarse from disuse. I copy you loud and clear. This is Marcus Chen, station commander and sole operator. A pause stretched across the cosmos, filled with the gentle hum of life support systems and the distant rumble of Kepler's atmospheric storms. Commander Chen, this is Captain Elena Vasquez. We're approaching your coordinates with a priority mission. We'll be docking in approximately 6 hours. Marcus set his coffee down with trembling hands. Company. Actual human beings were coming to his station. He looked around his living space with fresh eyes, suddenly aware of the accumulated mess of 2 decades. Books were stacked in precarious towers, empty food containers formed archaeological layers in the corners, and his clothes hung from makeshift lines strung between equipment panels. Understood, Captain. I'll prepare the docking bay. Might I ask what brings you to this corner of nowhere? We'll brief you upon arrival, Commander. But I can tell you this much, we need your expertise with the monitoring equipment you've been maintaining. The data you've been collecting may be more important than you know. After the transmission ended, Marcus stood in the center of his cramped quarters, overwhelmed by a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He had grown comfortable in his solitude, finding peace in the predictable routines of maintenance, observation, and the simple pleasure of existence without judgment or expectation. Now that was about to change. He spent the next several hours in a cleaning frenzy, stuffing personal items into storage compartments and running the air recyclers at maximum efficiency to clear out the accumulated staleness of his hermit's den. The shower unit, which he had been using perhaps once a week, received its first thorough cleaning in months. As he worked, Marcus found himself wondering about Captain Vasquez. Her voice had carried authority, but also something else, a warmth that suggested she understood the isolation he had endured. He tried to remember the last time he had held a real conversation with another person. The supply drone pilots who occasionally delivered resources were automatons, and his quarterly status reports to Earth Command were one-way transmissions into the void. The docking bay preparations took longer than expected. The mechanical systems had grown sluggish from infrequent use, and Marcus discovered several minor maintenance issues that would need immediate attention. As he worked with wrench and diagnostic tablet, he realized how much his body had adapted to low-gravity life. His muscles had weakened, and his reflexes had slowed. The thought of interacting with fresh crew members from Earth made him self-conscious about his physical decline. When the proximity alarms finally announced the arrival of Harmony, Marcus positioned himself at the observation deck to watch the approach. The ship was larger than he had expected, a sleek research vessel with the distinctive blue and silver markings of Earth's Deep Space Exploration Division. As it maneuvered toward the docking clamps, he could see figures moving behind the cockpit windows, real people, not ghosts from his imagination. The docking procedure proceeded smoothly, and Marcus made his way to the airlock with a mixture of anticipation and terror. He had rehearsed this moment countless times in his mind, but nothing could have prepared him for the actual experience of hearing footsteps that weren't his own echoing through the station corridors. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and the inner door slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Three figures in standard exploration suits stepped through, removing their helmets as they crossed the threshold into breathable atmosphere. Captain Vasquez was smaller than her commanding voice had suggested, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Behind her stood a tall man with the pale complexion of someone who spent most of his time in front of computer screens, and a woman whose medical insignia marked her as the ship's doctor. "Commander Chen," Captain Vasquez extended her hand with a genuine smile. "It's an honor to meet you. I'm Elena, this is Dr. Sarah Kim, and our systems specialist, James Wright." Marcus shook each of their hands, marveling at the simple human contact. "Welcome to Echo 7. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting visitors. What brings you to my little corner of the galaxy?" Elena's expression grew serious. "We're here because of the data you've been collecting from Kepler 442b. 3 months ago, our long-range analysis stations detected some unusual patterns in your transmissions. Energy signatures that don't match anything we've seen before." James stepped forward, pulling out a handheld device that immediately began interfacing with the station's computer systems. "The readings suggest there might be artificial structures beneath Kepler's cloud layers. Structures that are actively generating power." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had been monitoring the gas giant for 20 years, recording atmospheric compositions, storm patterns, and gravitational anomalies. Nothing in his data had suggested the possibility of artificial structures, let alone active ones. "That's impossible," he said slowly. "I've been tracking every electromagnetic emission from that planet. There's been no indication of artificial activity." Dr. Kim spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "That's exactly why we need your help, Commander. Whatever's down there has been masking its presence very effectively. But our new quantum sensors picked up fluctuations that correspond to the timing of certain atmospheric events you've recorded. Someone or something is deliberately hiding from conventional detection methods." Elena placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, a gesture that felt both foreign and comforting after his years of isolation. "We need someone who knows Kepler's patterns intimately. Someone who can help us distinguish between natural phenomena and artificial camouflage." "That's you, Marcus." The implications hit him like a physical blow. If there were artificial structures on Kepler 442b, that meant alien intelligence. Active alien intelligence that had been hiding from human detection for decades. And he had been sitting right here, completely unaware that he was potentially observing one of the most significant discoveries in human history. "How long have you suspected?" he asked. "The first anomalies appeared in our analysis 6 months ago," Elena replied. "But it took us this long to verify the patterns and organize this expedition. We've been authorized to conduct a full investigation, including atmospheric probes and possible surface contact." Marcus looked out the viewport at Kepler 442b, its familiar storm suddenly seeming mysterious and threatening. "Surface contact? With a gas giant? That's suicide." James smiled, the expression of someone who had spent years solving impossible problems. "Not exactly. Our ship is equipped with specialized atmospheric diving suits and a detachable probe module designed for high-pressure environments. We can reach the lower atmospheric layers where the energy signatures are strongest." Dr. Kim stepped closer to the viewport, her medical training evident in the way she observed and analyzed everything around her. "But we need baseline atmospheric data going back decades to plan the descent properly. We need to know normal versus abnormal, predictable versus manipulated. That's where your 20 years of observations become invaluable." Marcus nodded slowly, his mind racing through the implications. After 2 decades of routine monitoring, he was suddenly at the center of what could be humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. The isolation that had nearly driven him to madness might have been preparing him for the most important mission of his life. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Elena's smile returned, warmer this time. "First, we need access to your complete data archives. Every measurement, every anomaly, every observation note you've recorded. Then, we need you to help us correlate our new sensor data with your historical records." "And after that?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. After that, Elena said, looking directly into his eyes, we're going to take a closer look at what's been hiding down there. And, we want you to come with us. The words hung in the air like a challenge and an invitation rolled into one. Marcus Chen, who had spent 20 years alone on the edge of space, was being asked to potentially make first contact with alien intelligence. The coffee in his forgotten cup had long since grown cold, but the warmth spreading through his chest had nothing to do with caffeine. For the first time in decades, Marcus Chen felt truly alive. After 20 years without a companion, she finally calls me closer. The data integration process took 3 days, and Marcus found himself working more intensely than he had in years. Elena's team had transformed his quiet station into a bustling analysis center, with holographic displays showing atmospheric models, energy pattern correlations, and probability matrices that made his head spin. James Wright proved to be a genius with pattern recognition software. He had developed algorithms that could identify subtle relationships in data that would take humans months to discover manually. As they fed Marcus's 2 decades of observations into the system, strange correlations began to emerge. Look at this, James called out, his excitement evident as he manipulated a 3-dimensional atmospheric model floating above the main console. Every major storm system on Kepler shows artificial manipulation markers. The energy signatures spike exactly 12 hours before each storm formation, and they follow mathematical progressions that don't occur naturally. Dr. Kim leaned over Marcus's shoulder as he pulled up historical weather data. Her presence was simultaneously comforting and distracting. After 20 years of solitude, simple human proximity felt both wonderful and overwhelming. See these atmospheric pressure readings from August 2387, she pointed to a series of measurements on his screen. The variations follow a pattern that's almost like a heartbeat. Slow, steady, with occasional irregularities that correspond to major cosmic events. Marcus studied the data with fresh eyes, seeing patterns that had been invisible when viewed in isolation. I always assumed those irregularities were caused by gravitational effects from the other planets in the system. But, if you're right about artificial manipulation, then, we're looking at a civilization that has been actively managing their planet's weather systems for at least 20 years, Elena finished. Possibly much longer. The implications were staggering. Weather manipulation on a planetary scale suggested technological capabilities far beyond anything humanity had achieved. If there were intelligent beings on Kepler 442b, they possessed powers that approached godlike status in human terms. There's something else, Marcus said slowly, pulling up a different set of readings. Every 18 months, there's a complete cessation of all electromagnetic activity from the planet for exactly 72 hours. I always marked it down as equipment malfunction, but it happens with clockwork regularity. Elena and James exchanged significant glances. That's not equipment failure, Elena said grimly. That's a civilization going into complete electromagnetic silence. The question is why. Dr. Kim was running biological compatibility simulations on her tablet. If we're planning atmospheric descent, we need to consider the possibility of first contact protocols. Do we have any idea what kind of environment they've created down there? James pulled up the latest atmospheric composition analyses. The lower levels show unusual concentrations of noble gases and complex organic compounds. It's not breathable for humans, but it's not immediately toxic either. The pressure levels would crush us without protective gear, but the chemical environment suggests carbon-based life forms. Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and terror as the reality of their situation became clear. They weren't just investigating atmospheric anomalies anymore, they were preparing for humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. And, somehow, his 20 years of lonely observation had made him an essential part of the most important mission in human history. There's one more thing you should know, he said quietly. About 6 months ago, I started receiving faint signals that didn't match any known pulsar or natural radio source. They were so weak I couldn't get a proper reading, but the frequency patterns were unlike anything I'd seen before. Elena's eyes sharpened. You didn't include those in your reports to Earth Command. Marcus felt defensive for a moment, then realized she wasn't criticizing him. They were too weak to verify. I didn't want to file a false alarm report based on what might have been equipment degradation. Do you still have the recordings? James asked eagerly. Marcus nodded and began pulling up the archived signal data. As the audio played through the station's speakers, they all listened to a faint, rhythmic pattern that sounded almost like music. It was hauntingly beautiful, with harmonies that seemed to shift and evolve in ways that suggested intelligence and purpose. Dr. Kim was the first to speak after the recording ended. "That's not random. That's communication." Or art, James added thoughtfully. "The mathematical relationships in those harmonies are incredibly complex. Whoever created this has a sophisticated understanding of acoustic theory." Elena stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at Kepler 442b with new respect. "We've been watching them for 20 years, and they've been watching us back. Those signals weren't random, they were testing our reception capabilities." The thought sent a chill down Marcus's spine. If the aliens had been aware of human observation, why had they remained hidden? What were they waiting for? "Captain," James called out, his voice tight with urgency. "I'm reading a massive energy spike from Kepler. Whatever's down there, it just became a lot more active." They all turned to the monitoring displays, watching his energy readings climb to levels that dwarfed anything in Marcus's historical data. The familiar storm patterns on the planet's surface began to shift and reorganize themselves, forming geometric shapes that were clearly artificial. "They know we're here," Dr. Kim whispered. Elena moved quickly to the communication station. "Harmony, this is Echo 7. We have confirmed artificial activity on Kepler 442b. Prepare for immediate departure." The response came back immediately. "Echo 7, Harmony is ready for departure. Atmospheric probe launch sequence initiated." Marcus watched the familiar patterns of Kepler's surface transform before his eyes. Massive storm systems that had existed for decades suddenly dissipated, replaced by clear atmospheric windows that revealed glimpses of structures beneath the cloud layer. For the first time in his 20 years of observation, he could see the planet's hidden surface. What he saw defied comprehension. Vast geometric structures stretched across continents, connected by networks of energy conduits that pulsed with rhythmic light. Cities, if that's what they were, rose from the surface in spiraling towers that disappeared into the upper atmosphere. And, everywhere, the suggestion of movement, of purposeful activity on a scale that dwarfed human civilization. "My God," Elena breathed. "They've been building an entire civilization down there." The communication array crackled to life again, but this time the signal wasn't from Harmony. The speakers filled with a voice speaking in harmonious tones that resembled the musical patterns Marcus had been recording. But, underneath the alien language, a secondary transmission emerged, English, spoken with perfect grammar but an otherworldly accent. "Greetings, observer Marcus Chen. We have monitored your dedication to understanding our world for 2 decades. You have shown patience, persistence, and respect for the natural patterns of our existence. We are ready to meet." Marcus felt his knees go weak. They had been watching him specifically. For 20 years, his lonely vigil had been observed and evaluated by an alien civilization that had been deciding whether humanity was worthy of contact. Elena looked at him with a mixture of admiration and amazement. "Marcus, I think they're inviting you personally." The alien voice continued, each word carefully chosen and perfectly pronounced. "Your solitary watch has demonstrated human capacity for long-term thinking and environmental observation. These qualities suggest your species may be ready for expanded understanding. We invite Observer Chen and his companions to descend to our realm for formal introduction." Dr. Kim was frantically running biosafety protocols on her tablet. "This is unprecedented. Direct invitation for first contact. We need to consider every possible implication." James was equally busy, analyzing the communication signals for any hidden data or potential threats. "The transmission is coming from multiple points across the planet's surface. They have a global communication network that's been operating undetected for decades." Marcus stepped forward to the communication station, his hands trembling slightly as he activated the transmitter. After 20 years of sending reports into the void, he was finally going to have a real conversation. "This is Marcus Chen. We are honored by your invitation and accept your offer to meet." We come in peace, seeking understanding and friendship between our peoples. The response came immediately, as if they had been waiting for his acceptance. Understood, Observer Chen. We will guide your atmospheric descent to our primary diplomatic complex. Be aware that our environment has been modified for optimal biological compatibility. You will find our realm more hospitable than your instruments suggest. Elena moved to Marcus's side, her command presence reassuring in the face of this historic moment. We'll follow your guidance. What do we need to know for safe descent? Your protective equipment will be adequate for pressure and atmospheric composition. However, be prepared for sensory experiences beyond your normal range. Our civilization exists partially in electromagnetic spectrums that humans typically cannot perceive. We have adjusted our diplomatic facility to limit sensory overlap, but some exposure is unavoidable. Marcus looked around at his companions, seeing the same mixture of excitement and terror in their faces that he felt in his own chest. They were about to become the first humans to make direct contact with an alien civilization. And, somehow, his 20 years of patient observation had made this moment possible. When do we begin descent? Elena asked. Immediately, if you are prepared. The atmospheric conditions are optimal, and our preparations are complete. Observer Chen, your patience has been noted and appreciated. We look forward to finally meeting face to face. As they prepared for departure from the station that had been Marcus's home for 2 decades, he took one last look around the cramped quarters that had defined his adult life. The loneliness, the isolation, the endless routine of observation and reporting, it had all been leading to this moment. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder as they headed toward the docking bay. Ready to make history, Marcus? He looked out the viewport one final time at Kepler 442b, its surface now clearly visible through the artificial atmospheric windows. The planet that had been his silent companion for 20 years was about to reveal its greatest secrets. I'd been ready for 20 years, he replied. I just didn't know it yet. After 20 years without a companion, she finally calls me closer. The atmospheric descent took 4 hours, guided by alien navigation signals that led them through atmospheric layers Marcus had studied for decades but never imagined penetrating. The Harmony's specialized atmospheric module, a sphere of reinforced composite materials, carried the 4 humans deeper into Kepler 442b's alien environment. As they descended, the outside pressure readings climbed beyond anything the human body could survive unprotected. But the most remarkable thing was the view. Through the module's transparent aluminum viewports, they watched the alien civilization reveal itself layer by layer. The upper atmospheric levels contained floating structures that defied human engineering principles, crystalline spires that seemed to harvest energy directly from lightning strikes, connected by bridges of solid light that pulsed with rhythmic power transfers. These weren't just buildings, they were living components of a technological ecosystem. The energy readings are incredible, James whispered, his instruments detecting power flows that exceeded the output of Earth's largest fusion reactors. They're using the entire planet's atmospheric system as a power generation network. Dr. Kim was monitoring their life support systems while simultaneously running analysis on the external environment. The atmospheric composition is changing as we descend. They're actively modifying the chemistry to make it more compatible with our biology. Marcus watched the transformation with wonder and growing respect. The aliens weren't just inviting them to visit, they were restructuring their environment to ensure human safety and comfort. The level of technological control required for such real-time planetary modification was staggering. Observer Chen, the alien voice came through their communication system, clearer now that they were deeper in the atmosphere. You are approaching the primary diplomatic level. Please observe the structures around you. They have been constructed specifically for this historic meeting. Looking out the viewports, Marcus saw that they were approaching a massive platform floating in the planet's middle atmospheric layers. The structure was clearly artificial but incorporated flowing, organic designs that seemed to breathe and pulse with inner light. It was beautiful in a way that human architecture had never achieved, functional art on a scale that encompassed entire city districts. The platform extends approximately 50 kilometers in diameter, Elena observed, checking their navigation displays. It's been built specifically for this meeting. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. The aliens had constructed a diplomatic facility larger than most human cities, just for their arrival. The resources and planning required suggested that this moment had been anticipated and prepared for with incredible thoroughness. As their modules settled onto a designated landing area, they could see alien figures waiting to greet them. The beings were roughly humanoid in basic shape, but their proportions were elongated and graceful. Their skin seemed to shift between translucent and opaque, and they moved with a fluid coordination that suggested either enhanced biology or technological augmentation. Final atmospheric check, Dr. Kim announced. External atmosphere is now 92% compatible with human respiratory systems. They've modified the entire local environment for our arrival. Elena checked her protective suit one final time and looked at each of her team members. Everyone ready? We're about to become the first humans to meet an alien civilization. Marcus felt calm for the first time since their arrival. After 20 years of solitary observation, this felt like the natural culmination of his vigil. I'm ready. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and they stepped out onto the alien platform. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal, and the air carried strange scents that suggested complex chemistry beyond human experience. But the most remarkable thing was the aliens themselves. 3 beings approached them, moving with graceful steps that seemed to harmonize with the rhythmic patterns of energy flowing through the platform beneath their feet. The leader, distinguished by more elaborate bioluminescent patterns along its elongated limbs, stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. Observer Marcus Chen. We are honored to finally meet face to face. I am Resonance of Deep Waters, speaking for the collective that has observed your patient watch. Your dedication to understanding our world without interference has impressed us greatly. Marcus found his voice, though it felt strange to speak aloud after years of silent observation. The honor is ours. Your civilization is beyond anything we imagined. The beauty and complexity of what you've built here amazes us. Resonance of Deep Waters tilted its head in what might have been amusement. What we have built here is actually quite modest by our standards. This diplomatic platform was constructed in the past 6 months, after we decided that humanity had demonstrated sufficient patience and wisdom for direct contact. Elena stepped forward, her diplomatic training evident in her careful word choice. We appreciate the trust you've shown by revealing yourselves to us. What can we do to prove that humanity deserves this honor? The alien gestured toward a series of structures visible in the distance. We have been observing human civilization for centuries, not just through Observer Chen's dedicated watch. We have monitored your wars, your technological development, your treatment of your planetary environment. We have been waiting for signs that your species was ready to join the broader galactic community. Dr. Kim spoke up, her scientific curiosity overcoming diplomatic protocol. The broader galactic community? You're saying there are other civilizations? The second alien, with different bioluminescent patterns, responded in harmonious tones. The galaxy contains thousands of intelligent species, Dr. Kim. Most achieve technological capability and destroy themselves within a few centuries. Others achieve balance and wisdom and eventually make contact with the galactic network of peaceful civilizations. James was scanning the alien technology around them, his instruments detecting energy patterns that challenged his understanding of physics. How do we prove that humanity is ready for that network? Resonance of Deep Waters exchanged complex light patterns with its companions, clearly a form of rapid communication. The proof has already been demonstrated, primarily through Observer Chen's 20-year vigil. His patient observation without interference, his dedication to understanding rather than exploiting, his willingness to maintain lonely watch for the sake of knowledge, these qualities suggest that humanity has the potential for wisdom. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the weight of that assessment. His years of isolation hadn't been meaningless after all, they had been a test, and apparently humanity had passed. However, the third alien continued, individual wisdom and species-wide wisdom are different qualities. We invite you to observe our civilization and learn from our mistakes. We too went through periods of war, environmental destruction, and technological immaturity. We can share the lessons we learned during our development. Elena nodded eagerly. We would be honored to learn from your experience. What would such an exchange involve? Residents of deep waters gestured toward the vast city structures visible through the transparent atmospheric barriers surrounding the platform. We invite Observer Chen to remain with us for an extended period, to study our methods of planetary management and sustainable technological development. His understanding of long-term observation and environmental patience makes him an ideal student of our techniques. Marcus felt his heart race. They were offering him the opportunity to study an advanced alien civilization firsthand. After 20 years of remote observation, he was being invited to learn directly from beings whose technological capabilities seemed magical by human standards. The rest of your team would return to human space with initial technological gifts and knowledge that will help your civilization develop more sustainably, the alien continued. Observer Chen would serve as a cultural exchange representative, learning our methods and, eventually teaching them to humanity. Elena looked at Marcus with a mixture of pride and concern. That's a significant commitment, Marcus. You would be separated from human civilization for years, possibly decades. Marcus looked around at the alien architecture surrounding them, the graceful beings who had revealed themselves after centuries of hidden observation, and the vast technological wonders that represented possibilities beyond human imagination. After 20 years of isolation, the prospect of extended study among alien mentors felt like the greatest gift imaginable. I've been preparing for this my entire adult life, he said quietly. I accept. Resonance of deep waters pulsed with patterns of light that suggested approval and satisfaction. Your acceptance honors us, Observer Chen. We will begin your education immediately. Dr. Kim, Captain Vasquez, Specialist Wright, you will return to human space with gifts that will help your civilization develop the wisdom necessary for full galactic membership. As they toured the alien facilities over the following hours, Marcus saw technologies that solved every major problem facing human civilization. Environmental restoration techniques that could reverse centuries of damage in decades. Energy generation methods that produced no waste or pollution. Transportation systems that moved people and goods without consuming resources. Medical techniques that could extend healthy human lifespan by centuries. But, more importantly, he saw the philosophical frameworks that made such technologies possible. The aliens had learned to think in terms of millennia rather than years, to consider the impact of every action on planetary ecosystems and future generations. They had developed social systems that balanced individual achievement with collective welfare, technological advancement with environmental preservation. Dr. Kim was taking extensive notes on alien medical techniques, her excitement evident as she discussed biological enhancement methods that could eliminate most human diseases. James was studying energy generation systems that operated on principles unknown to human physics. Elena was learning about diplomatic and social structures that had maintained peace among multiple alien species for thousands of years. As the day of departure approached for the Harmony crew, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and melancholy. He was about to begin the greatest educational opportunity in human history, but he was also saying goodbye to the first human companions he had enjoyed in 20 years. You'll be back eventually, Elena said as they prepared to leave. And, when you return, you'll bring knowledge that will transform human civilization. You've earned this opportunity, Marcus. Dr. Kim gave him a small medical scanner configured for alien biology. In case you need to monitor your own health during the cultural exchange. Take care of yourself. James handed him a data tablet loaded with human technical manuals and cultural information. To help you explain human civilization to your teachers. And, to remind you where you came from. As the Harmony's atmospheric module lifted away from the alien platform, Marcus watched his friends disappear into the upper atmosphere. For the first time in 24 years, he was truly alone again. But, this time, his isolation was accompanied by alien mentors who valued his patience and dedication. Resonance of deep waters approached as the human ship disappeared from view. Are you prepared to begin your education, Observer Chen? Marcus looked around at the alien city stretching to the horizon, its elegant spires reaching toward the stars he had watched for 2 decades. This was the culmination of his long vigil, the purpose that had been hidden behind years of routine observation and lonely dedication. I've been ready my entire life, he replied. Let's begin. The alien pulsed with patterns of welcome and anticipation. Then, come, Observer Chen. Your real education starts now. And, through you, humanity will learn to join the community of wise civilizations that watches over the galaxy. As they walked together toward the alien educational complex, Marcus realized that his 20 years of solitude had been the greatest preparation possible for this moment. He had learned patience, dedication, and the value of understanding over exploitation. Now he would learn wisdom that could transform the future of human civilization. Behind them, Kepler 442b continued its eternal dance around its distant star, no longer hiding its secrets but revealing its wonders to the first human worthy of the knowledge.